this meeting to order at 6 p.m. I advise anyone present may not record video or audio any meetings and or leave any cell phone on, text, or email at any meetings without the permission of the mayor. I will now call for any disclosures of pecuniary interest and the general nature thereof for the agenda of this meeting and for minutes of which a meeting a member was not in attendance. Seeing none, we will move down to our delegations, and we have some delegations this evening. And we're going to be starting with 3.1, which is Mr. Ken Emery, read the zoning bylaw of 10 Birch Street, Red Lake. Mr. Emery, come over here, and I'll just explain a couple things. We're going to ask that you speak respectfully. You're allowed 5 minutes for your delegation to council, and if there's any questions afterwards, council will have the opportunity to ask you any types of questions.
Okay.
The floor is yours.
Okay, it's just like another closing speech here. I see none of our rest of my neighborhood didn't show up or say anything. But, you know, everybody knows what's going on. And to start off with, I made a big investment to move back here. And I got sidelined like this. For future notice, when developments like this coming up, can it be known around the public? Big signs put on the properties of where these things are going to happen. I would not invest in my life savings on a property that's going to be where you're going to have something next door like this built. I would not bought there. I bought there because it's a quiet neighborhood. Lots of retirees there. 3/4 of us are retired. I come there to get away from the lights. I could have stayed in the city if I wanted my whole backyard lit up like a ball field. Secondly, we had a book delivered to our neighborhood. None of us are prejudiced. If I was prejudiced, I would not have moved back to this town. I worked with all cultures in my mining career in 51 years in the mines. I never had a prejudice born in my mind. If I had something to say, pink, green, or whatever, I said it to them. And not yelling or screaming. Anyway, on that note, I had that book delivered, and on it, it said, for the neighborhood and the municipality to try to get along good and fair, the municipality should at least have 3 properties that the prospective person putting this building up can look at, to invest in or whatever. That didn't happen. I never seen it happen. I was told that it cost too much money for the investment to look into other properties. I made a big investment on a personal note, but that didn't seem to. Secondly, I just read that letter again. It said environmental studies will be done as the building is going on. I never heard of that before, which is unheard of. And like when we come here for the last planning meeting, it was voted before we even had the answers to our questions, which is kind of irregular. We all come to that conclusion. And then finally, at the end of that meeting, one of the ones running this planning meeting asked what they were voting on. Well, that doesn't show very much interest to the rest of us. It kind of shows you who won this battle. You know, what I'm saying is, there's other places, and it was also mentioned that this place is a booming thing now with this woman to do stuff. Sure, like, none of us are against this woman's shelter. None of us. Not one of us mentioned that we don't want it. But 1 acre of land, you're going to have approximately 30 to 50 people in 1 acre in that little corner. That's a lot of people. For a quiet little municipality that's got a lot of land, that could be used up and cleaned up and whatever the matter is. That's all I wanted to say. So when you guys do this, vote on this, I hope you put in consideration on these things too on our part. Is it a transit people or permanent residents here? Like, we're all permanent residents here. I plan to be buried in here. And so does everybody else living here. And we know what's going to happen. Take a ride down 9 Gold Shore Road and take a look, for instance. That's just a little example. You looked on your map there. I looked on your map today. The planning board couldn't even get the straits correct. Did you see that? Like when you're coming up Gold Shore Road from the Highway Street. You coming up there, and all of a sudden you're on 4th Street going up McDougal's, and you don't even know what street is lit around here. That just shows you how much faith I got in the planning board and all of us. That's all I want to say. I just hope you guys make the right decision on this. We're permanent residents here.
Okay, thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you.
Does any member of council have a question for Mr. Emery? Seeing none? Thank you very much.
Okay,
Mr.
thank
Emery.
you. Good evening.
Item 3.2, we have a dual delegation, if I can use that term, of Mr. Ben Reynolds from KDSB and Jennifer Chamberlain from New Starts for Women, read the zoning bylaw amendment for 10 Birch Street, Red Lake. So since there's two of you, there's an allotment of 5 minutes each, so you have a total of 10 minutes for your delegation. And again, we ask that you speak respectfully, and if there's any questions at the end of this, they'll be presented to council to ask whatever they need to ask. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you. I'll start. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Thank you for hearing from us today. My name is Ben Reynolds. I'm the Director of Infrastructure with KDSB. Part of my role with the DSAB is to lead new housing development in our district. And it's been some time since we've had meaningful development. The last meaningful investment in housing was our nonprofit providers in the mid to late 80s and 90s. And since that time, it's been stagnant. Shortly after the developments happened, the federal government announced they would no longer fund social housing, and the provincial program was abruptly cancelled. Since that time, Northwestern Ontario has been overlooked time and time again by higher levels of government when it comes to investments in new housing. Now opportunity is knocking. We have a new national housing strategy and a clear direction from local governments to solve the housing and homelessness crisis our district is facing. Since 2011, KDSB's waitlist for housing has increased 186%, and our housing stock has remained the same. In Red Lake, 58% of those experiencing homelessness cited a conflict with their spouse or fleeing domestic abuse as the reason they had become homeless. If we do not act on ensuring the basic need of housing in our communities is addressed, we will see our homelessness crisis continue to increase and our populations decline due to a lack of housing. We are excited to be developing new housing in many of our communities across the district, and I'm personally proud to be part of this project. We are not only meeting a core housing need, we're also going to be impacting families in a profound way. My colleague Jennifer from New Start will speak to the programming, the need, and the social outcomes this project will bring to the community. The partnership between New Starts and KDSB was vital in making this long-awaited project become a possibility. No matter what neighborhood we try to develop in, we face resistance. We understand that change is hard and unknowns bring fear. Many of the concerns we face stem from NIMBYism, and I can assure you that if this building was moved to another part of town, we would be standing in this very room with another group of concerned neighbors having those same conversations. We do, however, take concerns very seriously, and we have made changes to our plans based on what we have heard. We have relocated and reduced parking areas to maintain more natural wooded area, introduced new tree and shrub planting to the concept site plan, added privacy fencing to the property, and changed our floor plan to limit windows on the east side of the building. We will continue to take public feedback and work closely with the municipality on site plan approvals and building permits as our design is finalized. We look forward to building a project that the community can be proud of. So with that, I'll turn it over to Jennifer to speak on New Start's behalf.
Thank you. So this is my third time in this room, and the first time I have not brought any speaking notes with me. I did provide, I believe, 167 pages to Mayor and Council.
Thank you for that.
Last week, and I apologize for all that reading, but it does provide a big background on all the years that we've been working towards this. There's some good statistics in there on the need and why this project is so important. Some of the numbers and stats that you may not have heard is New Starts for Women started as an organization back in 1986, and since that time we've helped over 1,100 women and too many children to count. There have been quite a few success stories, and more often than not success stories, because there's no housing for these women and children to move into. So the importance of transitional housing, which is what this is women and children would be able to move from the shelter to transitional housing and stay there for up to 2 years. So it's not transient, it is temporary, but 2 years is kind of that midpoint and not necessarily temporary. Having it next to the shelter provides security and stability for the women and children that are fleeing their violent situations. It allows them a connection to shelter staff, and we have staff in that building to help them continue on with their healing journey. I'm not too sure there's much more I can add. There's a lot of information in those pages, and if you have any questions, we'd be more than willing to answer them.
Thank you very much for your time. Does any member of council have a question for our delegation? Councilor
A
Bridget.
couple questions. I believe this is a great thing, and it's definitely needed in our community. Just a couple of the questions I have are more for the security aspect. You said you adjusted your plans for privacy fencing. Is there a need for fencing around for security purposes? You're saying they're taking them out of a violent situation, and
So it will be a secure building.
it's a secure building, but
yeah.
it's still not going to be.
So controlled access, keyed entrance only, held by the tenants, and as well, it's going to be monitored from the shelter. There's going to be security cameras on the premise and monitoring. So it will be monitored 24/7. The fencing that is proposed is a secure spot for the children to play. So it is limited access from the public into the play space and the lounge space for the tenants. There's no plans for a compound, so to speak, around the property, but there will be attention to detail paid when it comes to security, for sure.
No, that's my biggest concern is the security of them. If they're leaving a violent situation where it's a little bit away from the staff that's there all the time and the potential for something to happen.
Mm-hmm. I may be more willing to discuss that conversation with you, not in the setting that's being recorded, just to keep our security confidential.
Okay, thank you.
That's it. Any other questions? Hearing none, thank you very much for your time and your delegation.
Thank you. Thanks.
So for our guests here this evening, I'll read out our consent agenda and what that means. So for the purposes of convenience and expediting meetings, matters of business of repetitive or routine nature are included in the consent agenda, and all such matters of business contained in the consent agenda are voted on collectively. A particular matter of business may be singled out from the consent agenda for debate or for a separate vote upon the request of any councillor. In the case of a separate vote, the excluded matter of business is severed from the consent agenda, and only the remaining matters of business contained in the consent agenda are voted on collectively. Okay. Moved by Councillor Christoph, seconded by Councillor Butterfield. Resolved that the Council of the Corporation, the Municipality of Red Lake, hereby consider sections 4 to 8 of Part 1 consent agenda as read and adopt the items. Does any member wish to ask a question on any of the items set forth in the resolution? And we'll start with Councillor Leduc.
I'm okay.
Councillor Butterfield, Councillor Christoph,
I'm good with it.
and Councillor Haig.
One question. It's 5.6.
5.6.
This is with regards to Minister of Infrastructure Champagne's announcement.
Yes.
And this the money that you're supposed to be receiving from the tax fund that's going to be going to a loan. So do we have any updates on that?
So that's the doubling up on the gas tax money. All indications are that we will be receiving that extra money this year. I've circled the regional CAO group, and everyone's under that impression. So as of right
Council
now,
will be putting in other instructions on how we can access it.
correct.
Okay, good.
Yeah, it's a flow through from the feds right to municipality.
That's
No
it.
other questions.
Okay. Call to question. All in favor? Carried. Moved by Councillor Butterfield, seconded by Councillor Baduke. Resolved that the Council of the Corporation of the Municipality of Red Lake hereby consider all bylaws, Section 9 of Part 1 Consent Agenda, as read without amendment or debate a first and second time. All in favor? Carried. And resolved that, moved by Councillor Baduke, seconded by Councillor Christoph. Resolved that the Council of the Corporation of Municipality of Red Lake hereby consider all bylaws, Section 9 of Part 1 Consent Agenda, as read a third time and passed. Does any member of Council have a question on any of the items set forth in the resolution? And we'll start with Councillor Christoph. Councillor Hager. Councillor Baduke.
No.
And Councillor Butterfield. All in favor? Carried. Okay, we're moving right on down to administration reports. 12.1, Mr. CAO.
So before you this evening is,
Can I just make it, just as a point, can we let our guests know that we just approved what they asked for?
Yep, the consent agenda was all approved. And we're
Yes.
moving down to our... And you're welcome to leave if you wish. Or you can stay for the rest of the council meeting.
I think that's what they're all waiting for.
We're carrying on with our administration reports.
You can't stay though.
Okay, Mr. CAO, 12.1.
Okay. So, as we're all aware of, that there's the Investing in Canada program. It's a bilateral agreement between the province of Ontario and the federal government. There's 4 initiatives. 2 have been launched. That being the transit one, which we do not qualify for. In fact, all that money has been allocated to the communities that are eligible. The other program that's of great interest to us is the Rural and Northern Communities Program. It's a $250 million program. And before you, we're bringing 4 projects for your consideration. The deadline for applications, now the funding's not guaranteed, so we'll be in a competitive application process with other communities in Ontario. Within the program, it's a cost sharing between the province, the feds, and the municipality. And because we're 5,000 below 5,000 population, we qualify for the federal cost share of up to 60%, the province cost share up to 33.3%, and the municipality share would be roughly 6.67%. So if approved, we could get a lot of work done, for not having to inject, massive dollars from the local share. The eligible projects are roads, bridges, air and marine, and their eligible project types are new construction, rehabilitation, and replacement work. So, Infrastructure Development Coordinator Todd Olson's here tonight, and he'll give a brief description of each project. We're presenting them in what we believe is in priority order, and the first one will be Red Lake. And as Mr. Olson goes through that, you'll see that and with this program too, with roads, it has to be connecting. It just can't be one road stop, go to the other side of town, road stop. So it has to be connecting, and Mr. Olson will demonstrate that. But we've identified from a staff perspective, Red Lake being the priority. I will pass it on to Mr. Olson.
Thank you, Mark. The main focus for this was to highlight sections of the road where we don't need water, sewer, or stormwater replacement. So keeping that reduced to a minimum was the main focus for each project. We pulled in data from our street scan asset management plan that was completed last year, as well as the water and sewer infrastructure study. So in these areas where we plan on rehabilitating, one of the main focuses is asphalt's got a lifespan of 25 to 30 years. We don't want to be paving over areas where water and sewer needs to be replaced in the next 20 years, roughly. So that was one focus, and that's been added in a column under each section of the road. Also, we're looking at the pavement condition index rating. There's different methods of rehabilitation to paving, and that would be considered throughout the projects. So as Mark said, it has to be a continuous project. In Red Lake, there's roughly 4 kilometers of paving, 2.2 kilometers of new sidewalk, a half a kilometer of existing sidewalk to be replaced. And what's unique here is with the existing 1.4 kilometers of sidewalk on Highway 105, Howie Street /618, you develop 2 major active transportation loops, or essentially a figure 8 throughout the whole town, which would be unique in this project. The eligible project is $4.6 million. The municipal share for it would be roughly $300,000. Ineligible would be $750,000, primarily of stormwater replacement, and that would be handled through the OCIF fund or formula fund. Another unique thing about this project, similar to the Gold Shore project we completed last year, where we had failing stormwater system, we renewed the stormwater systems on Patricia Square, Patricia Drive, and Hamill Road, both sides of Highway 618, as well as tying in the last component of cross-tech with new paving from the highway. This year achieves past paving strategies of tying in with the newly completed highway, the hills north of the highway there.
Mr. Olson, just going back to what you mentioned a few moments ago, part of the application process for this is about the movement of people going along where the proposed Legion is at the corner there and moving all the way around. That's about moving people throughout the community. Correct?
Correct, yeah. And tying in with the existing sidewalks, it completes two.
Just one other thing too, just on top of that, is we have an upcoming meeting with the Ministry of Transportation on a potential crosswalk in that area. As we all know, there's lots of activity in that area, and moving people across the highways safely is very important.
That as well will be a great addition, and that sums up Red Lake. And everything's kind of charted out in the graph or the chart following the map. For Bombertown, roughly 2.3 kilometers of paving, 300 meters of new 2019 that gets dealt with this project with OCIF money. In Kosher is roughly 1.5 kilometers of paving. The overall eligible project is 900,000 with the municipal component of 60,000. And again, charted out is $90,000 worth of ineligible hydrant and water main replacement, which is contained along Elliott Street. One of the factors here, we have engineered plans for water and sewer replacement, and it's primarily running in the laneways within Kosher, servicing the residents. So less favorable for this project to go ahead, being that when you go to finish the water and sewer in the laneways, we'd have to open up the intersections in 6 different locations of new pavement to tie back into the existing water and sewer. And lastly, Madison is roughly 1 kilometer of new paving. It's eligible projects $500,000 with the municipal component around $33,000. No water, sewer, storm replacement. Any questions? Feel free.
Thank you, Mr. Wilson. And part of this project, applying for the fund, as our CEO was explaining, is there's certain qualifications to make the applications for it too, and a lot of it is about moving people and getting people moving. So what we're facing is creating a choice because we can only submit one application. We can't submit 4 different applications. So we have to have a discussion around this table as to which part of the municipality we would like the application to focus on, and then submit our application and see what happens. There's nothing guaranteed in regards to dollars we get. It could be 0. It could be everything we ask for. We don't know at this point. So all we can do is attempt with the application and move forward with that. Mr. Sean.
And I don't know if I mentioned it, but the deadline to apply is May 14th. And so there's 3 questions today. 1, you want us to apply, and 2, the project. And the third, really, it's not a question, but more of a statement right now. The works that are ineligible, those are not budgeted right now, but there would be a utilization of the OCIF formula-based funding. So it wouldn't be borrowed money or anything.
Thank you. So that's okay. Just wanted to say one thing just before we go. So I don't want to make an assumption. I would think that everyone would want us to move forward with the application process. Is there anybody opposed to that? No. Okay. So question number 1 is answered. Let's make an application. So question number 2 now is we need to have a discussion on where we would like to focus our application to move forward with. So, Councillor Hager, you had your hand up. Go ahead.
Okay, well, first of all, it was OCIF. What does that stand for? OCIF funding?
Go ahead.
Ontario Community Infrastructure Fund.
Oh, okay, so that money is available through there.
Well, through, Mr. CEO, you can explain that again. Our application process.
Yeah, so for the ineligible stuff, we've utilized the formula from OCIF, which we've already received. And then the rest of the money, so then let's just say 96% of the rest of the money, if approved, would come through this Rural and Northern Communities Fund. But again, our share would be 6.67%. If
Very minimal.
And again, the max, the ceiling on this is $5 million on this program.
Can I go ahead? Okay, so this is, I think there are 2 projects that stand out right away. One of them is Red Lake, one is Mormon, and I'm saying based on our community improvement plan and that process, having identified those as our major areas we're working with. So I just want to go in there fast because we do, it's not that we are ignoring it. The secondary areas are Madsen, Bush, and Mackenzie. So I think if we already have this and we're going to make references to our official plan, I personally would say we should be looking at planning 1 or 2, which is Red Lake and Palmertown. So then I went over the community improvement plan, and I just want to point out a couple of things because I think there are things we need to take into consideration. One obviously is movement of people, but the improvement which will most sustainably increase the safety, stability, and aesthetic quality of the community shall be undertaken first if we're going to do a community improvement area project. So there are a couple of issues because Councillor Christoph, several meetings ago, had pointed out the sidewalk access for the kids that are at the elementary school. And that is a safety issue. The Red Lake project, on the other hand, I think has a bigger impact.
Correct. Councillor Butterfield.
So I've been doing a lot of driving around looking at the structure because I saw this map just recently. And my biggest concern is if we do Palmertown, because they're capping the last part of the Campbell tailings pond, I have a feeling that it's doing a major ground shift on the road. If you watch that road on a daily basis, it moves. It's a big swamp, and I think until the tailings pond is capped, I feel we shouldn't touch that road, which is part of the project, because I have a feeling that we'll be redoing it in 2 years. Once it's capped and everything settles, I think then we should go forward on the Palmertown project. That's my own feeling.
Okay. Thank you. Councillor Christoph?
Well, I'm along the same lines, Red Lake and Palmertown. Of course, Palmertown for the sidewalks, but if it has to be continuous, I suppose that McNeely has to be part of that. Right? The McNeely portion of Palmertown has to be part of that. Yeah. So I don't know, have we done any studies on any kind of road studies? Is that something
Yeah, the Beatty Road was part of the street scan study, which reviewed all paved surfaces throughout the community. It just focused on asphalt condition ratings primarily.
So yeah, my toss up is, well, Red Lake and Palmertown, those would be 1 and 2 that I think we should look at.
Councillor Purdue?
Well, I think the major traffic areas that would benefit the most people would be the Red Lake and Palmertown projects. That being said, with the Councillor Butterfield's concerns about things, we could just go up to that corner then and cut it off right there, right?
And the whole thing
It
about
could be
this,
stopped short of the road that's going to heave and sink and road.
well, and the whole thing about this is, I believe, what was the Palmertown project, 2 something? Yeah. 2.2. 2.2. So we're eligible potentially for $5 million. That being said, we have to ask ourselves, and it's not to take anything away from within our municipality, working Cochner, Madsen, Palmertown, Red Lake, wherever. It's not to say that we don't need the work. The problem is we can only apply for one project. So we have to ask ourselves, what is the best value for our dollars, the biggest bang for the buck, getting the most out of the funding, and what's going to be most of the flavor in regards to the application process. Because we want to make sure if we do get in, we're making sure that we are moving people, we are doing this. We don't want to get denied right at the first stage of the application process. So that's key to a lot of things as well, but duly noted with your concerns in Palmertown, definitely. So we have to make a decision, and what I'm hearing around here, Palmertown and Red Lake, yes, but we have to come up with one. So can we go around the table and have a choice? Would that work for everybody? Okay, so Councillor Christoph, what would your preference be?
Well, if we're going for it and you get the most money, my vote would have to be for Red Lake.
Okay,
It is going to have the biggest impact.
okay. Councillor Hager?
I would agree with Red Lake.
Red Lake. Councillor Padu?
Yeah, if it's only one, that's the biggest project and
Red
would
Lake.
affect the most people. Red Lake.
And Councillor Butterfield?
Definitely Red Lake.
So we're going to submit this sooner rather than later to make sure that we get in time for the application process. But again, it doesn't mean that we're going to be accepted, but we needed to have some work to focus on in one area within the municipality to focus that work on. So thank you very much, and thank you, Mr. Olson, for your presentation and work for council here. I appreciate that. So moved by Councillor Christoph, seconded by Councillor Badu. Resolved that the Council of the Corporation of the Municipality of Red Lake hereby accepts staff report CDC-19-01, the Community Development and Communications, regarding the Investing in Canada Infrastructure Program, Rural and Northern Stream. And further resolved that the Council of the Corporation of the Municipality of Red Lake hereby approves the following projects for funding. And we have chosen Red Lake. All in favor? Carried. Moved by Councillor Butterfield, seconded by Councillor Paduch. Resolved that the Council of the Corporation of the Municipality of Red Lake hereby adjourns to meet again at the call of the Mayor. All in favor? Carried. Thank you very much.